My father died tragically when I was very young. He left a bad impression on me. I remember he drank a lot and he had a very violent temper. He would argue loudly with my mother, and these arguments were threatening and made me feel very uneasy. There are also memories of irrational behavior that he displayed in his drunken state, such as breaking things in the house. My mother endured so much pain, yet always held on to her family. After my father's death, my mother worked very hard to give me a better life. She went through a lot of hardships in this process. She often taught me to be strong, to believe in myself, and to try to move forward no matter how hard life was. When I graduated from college, my mother and I were very happy. My mother's love was my motivation to move forward. After I got married, I was very eager to take her into our home and live together because I wanted to take good care of her. However, she preferred to live in her previous house. Probably she felt more comfortable there. This experience took place on Christmas Day 2011, when we took the children with us to my mother's house. I clearly remember that winter was very cold. After we had a nice dinner, my husband and I returned home. Shortly afterward, I felt that it became very difficult to breathe, as if there was a stone pressing down on my chest. The feeling grew stronger and stronger. I told my husband to call emergency services, which I repeated several times. As time went on, my consciousness began to fade, and it all happened so quickly. I said to my husband, "Baby, when are they coming?" He replied, "The doctors are on their way, honey." He held my hand and kept comforting me. Suddenly, I noticed a dark figure appearing in the window. It seemed like a thick cloud of black smoke with no definite shape. It gave off an eerie atmosphere. It seemed to be watching me all the time. Its presence frightened me greatly. I didn't know what it wanted. Perhaps it wanted my soul, or it had some other purpose. It was at this point that I began to worry. Could this be my late father? This thought made me even more nervous and scared because I didn't know why he was here. After a while, paramedics arrived at our apartment. They began to scrutinize my condition. I was very nervous, and my blood pressure and heart rate were very low. The paramedics asked me if I could stand up, and I tried to stand up, but my legs were not strong enough to support me. They realized the situation was very serious and quickly brought a stretcher and carried me from the apartment building to the ambulance. Fear and despair mingled, and I said out loud, "No. I'm dying." I grabbed the arm of one of the paramedics. I kept crying, "Help me. I'm dying." Suddenly, everything around me began to blur. I began to wonder if I was really dead. In that instant, my soul detached from my body. A terrifying demon appeared beside me and began to chase me. This demon made a frightening hissing sound. It told me that I would never see my husband and mother again. The demon's presence made me feel extremely scared and alone. I tried so hard to get away from this monster, but it seemed to keep watching me, knowing my every thought and action. The creature hovered around me, constantly threatening me. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain. It was the worst pain I had ever felt. I suddenly heard a voice that was so familiar. The voice seemed to be guiding me back to reality. But then everything suddenly turned black again. I felt like I was suspended in a dark space with no boundaries. I couldn't see anything or feel my body. I started to shout, but to my surprise, my voice was so low that it seemed that only I could hear myself. I kept shouting, and my voice echoed in the darkness. I had only one wish: to return to my family. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to be stuck in this place forever. I kept shouting out loud, please help me. Please help me. I longed to be saved and return to that warm and real world. Suddenly, I had a feeling of relief. Next, I began to fall downward, my body being pulled by invisible forces. The speed of the descent made me panic. I remembered my mother once telling me that if you repent, you won't go to hell. In that moment, I felt like I was falling into the abyss of hell. Screams filled my surroundings as I kept falling, unable to resist this powerful force. I also remember my mother telling me that if you pray to God for forgiveness, you will not go to hell. So I began to pray. I prayed to God, please forgive me for my sins. I prayed to you, don't let me go to hell. My voice echoed in the darkness. In that moment, faith was the only power that could save me. Finally, I stopped falling and I landed on a hot boulder. It was as if my feet were on fire and I could clearly smell the burning around me. I couldn't see anything now, and darkness still enveloped me. Suddenly, a voice rang out in the darkness. Child, your time has not yet come. You must climb up and get out of here. I began to struggle up the walls, which were very steep. There were people shouting at me from below. They told me there was nothing I could do. They questioned whether I would be able to save myself. I tenaciously continued to climb, believing that if I didn't give up, I would be able to overcome these obstacles and escape the darkness. As I was about to reach the top, I saw a hand reaching out to me. I saw the figure of a man, but I couldn't clearly see his face. A brilliant light radiated around him. I believed it was Jesus. In that moment, his presence became so miraculous and real. At one time, I questioned the existence of God, but now, God was all around me. I was confident that everything would get better because there was a force at my side, leading me to the light. Jesus said to me, "Son, you must go back. Your family is waiting for you." He continued, "Before I send you back, I must show you something." He helped me review something that had happened in the past. I saw the next scene. On my way home from school, I was fighting with a female classmate. Then Jesus asked me, "What did you learn through this incident? If you had the opportunity to go back in time, what would you change?" At that moment, I felt a great deal of regret because I realized how foolish I had acted. I answered that if I had the chance to go back in time, I would try to change my decision and would not choose violence as a solution to my problems. Next, I saw my 10-year-old self. I snuck out a lot of chocolate from the cupboard, a sweet treat that is always tempting to a child. Then, I walked out into the yard and ate all of these chocolates. I threw the chocolate wrappers outside the yard, hoping that no one would notice that I had stolen the chocolates. I saw many other similar scenes. Each scene was a part of my life and each one taught me something new. I need to work on correcting many things in my life. Suddenly, everything stopped and I appeared in the middle of a bright white room. There, I saw my grandmother. Even though she had died a few years ago, she looked so beautiful. She looked young and her appearance radiated warmth and wisdom. Her skin was very smooth and without the slightest wrinkle. She was wearing a white dress and looked like an angel. She said to me, "Your time is not up yet. We are not ready for you to be here. Your husband and mother are waiting for you and you must go back." My heart became heavy because I didn't know how to go back. I felt helpless and confused. My grandmother pointed her finger to my right. So I walked towards that path. Grandmother's gaze was full of encouragement, as if telling me that this path would bring me back to earth and to my family. A warm glow surrounded me, and everything began to become clear. My consciousness gradually connected to my body and I began to feel my surroundings and my own breathing. I was back in my body and the moment was full of wonder. It was clear to me that I was safe. In that moment, I felt how lucky I was. I spent a month in the hospital, which was a long and difficult time. It is a medically unexplainable miracle that my kidneys completely healed themselves in the process. For years I had suffered from anemia, but now my hemoglobin levels are all back to normal. I am convinced that Jesus saved me, and I proved my courage and determination at that critical moment. This experience made me realize the fragility and preciousness of life and gave me a deeper understanding of faith.